You've abandoned yourself more times this week than anybody has ever abandoned you in the past. Every single time you've said it's fine when you've not meant it. Every single need that you swallowed down so that others felt comfortable. Every opinion that you shrank because, it was safer to shrink it than to share it. This abandonment happens, and it happens so quietly that you might not even notice it's happened. It's almost as if it's got its wee invisibility cloak on and it's crept, and you have all of a sudden abandoned yourself. And you feel it, don't you? You feel it, maybe not in that moment, or maybe you do feel it in that moment somewhere inside, but you can't quite put your finger onto it. But you know that it feels a little bit like self-abandonment. It feels a little bit like you're letting yourself down, or it might even feel like you've not got your own back. Let me show you how this actually looks, because it rarely looks dramatic. It's not coming in like the circus showing up to town. It's saying, I'm fine, when you're very much not fine. It's waiting to hear what everyone else in the room thinks before you decide to share your opinion. It's apologising for taking up space. And you might even literally be saying sorry for asking a question, or maybe even for saying, I need 5 more minutes. Or even having a want, need or preference yourself. It's doing the thing that you didn't want to do in the first place because saying no has got too high a price ticket on it. It costs too much. It's talking yourself out of something that you've needed long before it's left your mouth. Maybe even saying something like, it's not that important to me, when clearly it really is. And none of that looks like a crisis, does it? You might even hear people say to you, you're so easygoing, you're so easy to get along with. And that's why it's so easy to miss it. I worked with a lady a while ago who came in with a similar identity, all right? She had said to me at first she was saying for her entire life, she's felt as if she's just taken the back burner, taken the back seat even, and she would just sort of watch everybody else, live their best life, ask for what it was that they wanted, and she always felt like she never got a sort of seat at the table because she felt like she was too much of an inconvenience. She felt like she would be taking up too much space, or who was she even to ask and request for that kind of that bit of space. She had such good friends, she had such a great family, and they didn't even know that this was going on. They always found her to be easygoing, as she'd said. They'd always found her to be somebody who was, up to tag along or whatever else. She didn't want to be the limelight. She didn't want to be the life and soul of the party, but she did want to sometimes do things that was good for her. She did want to sometimes have people come along to things that she wanted to go to, but she was too scared to ask just in case she got that rejection. And we looked back at it, and we looked all the way back through her history, and what we found was that at a very young age that she'd felt, because mum and dad had separated, there was this sort of this rejection, the family rejection. And, that story, her story, was powerful for her because it meant that she didn't really have mum and dad around. She watched other families having that perfect white picket family family life, as she described it. And she almost felt as if she didn't really know where she fit in. So when she was playing with friends and things, she would watch and she would notice and she would play along, but she just didn't want to ever get too big, too in there, too loud, just in case she felt that same rejection again. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because sometimes we do that. Sometimes we hold ourselves back because we don't want to experience the rejection, because we worry actually that by doing this, it means that we would be setting ourselves up for something to fall apart. And interestingly, as we unravelled it even further, it came back to her sense of her own self-worth, her own self-esteem. And that self-esteem, you'll be glad to know, can be built up. We can look and we can take on board, but we can also see the evidence from even the friendships that we have in our lives, even the family members. Because if she was to ask any of those friends and family members in her life what they thought of her, they would only have good things. And I want to say this to you just now. If you're sitting there watching this as somebody who fears being rejected, who doesn't want to ask, who doesn't want to be an inconvenience, go and do me a favour. Go and dip your foot into the discomfort just for a minute. And do me a favour here, believe the hype. Every single person that knows and loves you will celebrate you, will know and Be the first ones to turn around and say, what an absolute belter person she is, or he is, all right? Do that. Collect the receipts, turn around and challenge yourself and say to yourself, hold on a minute, this can't be true. Because somewhere along the history of your life, you learned that actually you might have been in somebody's story an inconvenience, but you're not an inconvenience at all. You are not. Don't play that role anymore. It's time for you to take a seat at the table. So where does this come from? Almost always it comes from somewhere early, all the way back to the patterns that we learned as kiddies in order to feel safe, in order to belong, in order to not feel like we were being rejected. It might have even been a version of love, of safety, of approval that felt conditional, and that condition was that you had to be easygoing, that you had to be undemanding, that you were no trouble at all. I see you good girls out there, I see all of you performers. A very young version of you drew a very reasonable and rational conclusion from an unreasonable situation. My needs are the risk, not the request. And that conclusion for you, it didn't stay in childhood, it followed you through, because that's the thing with pattern, isn't it? It decides to sort of cling on and stick to you, and you begin to take that through into the next part of your life, into the next part of your life, and that learning and that development grows and grows and grows with you until it's an unconscious decision that you're making, until it becomes almost as if it's an identity that you wear. Because it became the quiet operating system that led your life. It's what was running underneath every single, it's fine, I'm okay, yes, no bother, no problems, no worries, that's okay with me, that you've ever felt or said. And that's why now it doesn't feel like a strategy anymore. It just feels like your personality. Like I said, it feels like your identity. And some of that might be okay, some of that might be actually true, but quite a lot of it's probably a survival skill that you learned a long time ago. And it's still running long after the situation has left, long after it's needed to keep going on and on repeat. Now, some of you might be thinking, Michelle, we've already visited this in boundary setting in the past. Yes, you're right. But boundary setting is about setting something internal to external. Here what we're doing is we're focusing primarily on that internal part, the internal voice, the internal need for you to not abandon yourself anymore. Because you could have the best boundary scripts in the world, you know, you can show up with the, that's not going to work for me. But guess what? You'll still abandon yourself. Because leaving isn't about what you say to someone else, it's what you actually say to yourself. It's what you hold internally for you. And I kind of want to call this quiet leaving, you know, the quiet exit. That exit that you make when you don't want anyone else to see. The exit that you make actually when you don't even realise yourself that you're doing it, when you're shutting down your own wants, needs and desires just so that everyone else in your opinion can feel comfortable. Because you've already decided it's too much. You've already decided you'd be too much of an inconvenience. Not worth the awkwardness. Sadly not worth the effort. So technically nobody rejected you, but you did. And it shows up in friendships, it shows up in relationships, it shows up in family. What you decide is that your needs, your wants, your desires don't need to be met. So quietly you just sit back. And yes, people turn around and they say things like, you're so easygoing, that's just so laid back and whatever else. But internally your needs aren't being met, are they? Your needs are just sort of sitting there waiting for an opportunity. But they're not doing it to you, it's you. It's time for you to step into maybe even just dipping your toe into that area of out of your comfort zone, dipping your toe out and saying, right, hold on a wee minute, what would happen if I requested this? What happens if I did take up a bit of space? Just a wee tiny bit of space to start off with, you know, nobody's asking you to be all singing, all dancing and whatever else. Here's what I want you to sit with just now for me, okay? The part of you that learned to disappear was not weak. It was resourceful. It decided that it had to get through something. So it learned a strategy. It learned a strategy and it gained tools that maybe a child had access to, that maybe a child had to somehow put together so that they could feel okay. And the fact that you're still staying quiet and the fact that you still feel like you have to sort of hold yourself back, it doesn't matter actually. It just means that the strategy has outlived the situation. This isn't a character flaw, this is just some programming that needs to be updated. Imagine if you were still operating on Windows 97, how slow would your day be going? How slow would your computer be moving along, eh? But you're not, are you? You've updated it a few times, and the same thing has to happen here with regards to this. So how is it that you're able to sort of move along with this? How is it that you're able to even just sort of soften some of the jaggy edges that go along with feeling this way? Firstly, what I'd like for you to do is just take a breath, just take a breather. Oh, that was hard, that was tough. And in that breather, there will be a tiny gap, and that tiny gap gives you an opportunity. And within that opportunity that's there, you have the chance to catch up with your mouth. You have the chance to say, no, I don't want to do that. If it's something that you've been kind of going along with that you no longer want to be part of anymore. I remember when I was doing my teacher training for mindfulness, and what they told us was that there are two types of people. People who answer in 2 seconds and people who take 11. Alright? Now, if you are somebody that's quick to answer, that doesn't like the silence, that doesn't like the discomfort of everyone being quiet or has to answer just so that you think that you're doing the meditation teacher a favour, take a breath. Step into being one of those 11-second people. I had to learn it. It was really blooming uncomfortable because for me, I was definitely a 2-second responder, all right? But taking that seat back, taking that beat, allowing somebody else to go first was pretty cool actually. Because it gave me the opportunity to really digest what it was that was going on for me. And another thing, it might even be quite useful for you to say one, just one, true. And it doesn't even have to be sort of relevant. It might even be that you're just talking to yourself here for a moment. Say one true thing aloud each day. It might sound like, I don't want to talk about that right now. Or maybe if it is that you're somebody who replays a lot of memories from the past, it might even be interrupting that cycle that's going on inside that says, actually, do you know what? I don't want to think about this right now. I can come back to it later. And what you're doing there is you're interrupting that cycle that continues. You're interrupting the flow of, I guess, feeling rubbish. And what this does is it gathers evidence for you that you don't have to push through. It's not confrontation at all. It's just one honest statement that says, actually, hold on a wee minute. Here's a sentence that is true that doesn't get swallowed down by me, that doesn't get pushed all the way down. And do that time and time again, and what you'll find is that quiet leaving, that quiet exit starts to loosen its grip, and it goes, oh, wait a wee minute, there's somebody else in the driving seat here. It's yourself. And if this is the first time that you've heard anything about quiet leaving or that sort of silent exit, then I'm glad you're here. There's more of this pattern every single week, and I'd love for you to stick around for it. You don't have to earn the right from anybody to exist just as you are. You were never supposed to be the person who silently exited. You deserve to take a seat at the table. And I want to leave you how I always leave you. Be gentle with yourself. You are a work in progress.